Hey guys! I'm Sarah Catherine.
And I'm Brooke.
And this is the
Unstained
Podcast.
Today is our first episode of filming.
We're really excited, a little giggly.
A little ambitious, but nervous, you know. And we're really excited though.
Yes.
So for starters, our little introduction, how we came up with the Unstained Podcast is from church, actually.
Yes.
And what first sparked this idea was our Sunday school teacher,
Mr. Jeff. We love him.
Mr. Jeff, but also Mr. Kyle, because he is very, when he goes on a tangent, he is very good, you know, and it's just
we love Jeff, we love Kyle.
Yes, and we love Matt too.
Yes, and Matt.
Anyways, and so when they go on their tangents, you can just see hear the spirit, it's just period, you know.
And we love when Mr. Kyle teaches, because we're so engaged, and we're not dozing off.
Yeah, they make it interesting.
Yeah.
But anyways, and Mr. Kyle is always just spot on, you know. Yes. I mean, they all are, but this one day in particular. And so we went up to him after class and we were like, Mr. Kyle, you should start your own podcast.
Yes. Or TED Talk.
Yeah, or TED Talk. Yeah.
TED Talk, yeah.
And so and he was like, yeah. And I was like, we should all just do one together. And then I looked at her and
kind of jokingly.
Yeah. And I was like, we should
actually do a podcast.
Exactly. And so that's what we did. We started planning that night.
And she texted me. She was like, oh my gosh, I have the best name. Unstained.
Because that day in the service after Sunday school, we started talking about James 1:27.
Yes.
Which says to be unstained from the world.
Yes.
And so I'm like, oh, perfect name.
So that afternoon, we started coming up with ideas. Literally have my whole notebook full of stuff.
Yeah, she's been planning.
What can I say? I'm just a planner over here, okay?
She's just
but we really thought this was important to kind of talk about, because I know as teenagers we kind of struggle with being set apart from others, because it's really hard to fall into peer pressure and stuff that just isn't from God.
Yeah.
So wouldn't you agree?
I definitely agree, and that's something I struggle with too.
Yes. That, and we wanted to talk about it more, because that's something we personally struggle with, and we're not saying we know we know everything.
Yeah, we're not saying we're better. This is we're all learning together.
Yes.
So
exactly.
We're glad y'all are here.
Yes. Okay, so now we're kind of going to be sharing our testimonies and how we came to know God. So I'm going to kind of go first. I would say the first time I really started seeing God in my life was actually in 5th grade, when I started doing lead team at Hunter Street.
Aww.
And basically we would sing and dance on stage and do dances and stuff. Mm-hmm. And that was when I really was oh my gosh, this is when I was coming to the realization God is actually in my life, and he will always be in my life. But I feel the first time that I had a true relationship with the Lord has actually been pretty recent. I would say sophomore year. Mm-hmm. There was a time in my life where I was having a lot of family issues, and I learned to really depend on God, and put all of my trust and faith in God instead of other things that weren't gonna bring me satisfaction.
Yeah.
We were having a lot of challenges with my brother, and it was just really hard things that we were going through, and my whole family, I feel we really grew in our faith, because that God was our only hope in that situation, because it was just a really, if I'm being honest, a really dark time in my life.
Yeah.
So that was also kind of what got us back into church, because for a while we were not going to church consistently. And that whole thing with my brother, having to go to the hospital for mental health things, just really challenging stuff, that actually got my family back going into church, which was amazing. And I that was just a big thing for me. And that's when my relationship grew with God, not just knowing who God was, but having a relationship with God. So that's what I would say kind of that event for me really led me more to Christ. How about you, Brooke?
Well, before I start, I would just like to say that's a prime example of how God uses things for the good of those who love him in his glory, because that's just crazy.
I know. I love that. Even the worst of things that y'all might go through, we might go through, anyone, the worst things that could happen, God uses those things to bring you closer to him and to bring others closer to him and for you to like learn more things about him. So exactly. I really love that. And that
I love that too.
That was like just a great revelation for me. Yeah. But what about you, Brooke? How did you?
So I've grown up in a Christian home my whole life, and I'm very thankful for that because I would like sorry. I would definitely not be like who I am today without my dad, my mom, and my brother.
Same.
And so I asked Jesus into my heart when I was 5 years old.
I love this story.
And it's so like, wow, like a 5-year-old, like that's crazy.
Yeah.
And so I honestly, like I didn't know all of what it meant, like when I was 5, you know? But like I knew like I wanted Jesus, I guess, you know? But I definitely like would go through the motions a lot. And I feel like my like actual relationship started, like what you said.
Yeah.
Like not just being like, oh, like I love Jesus, but like knowing him and like dwelling with him would definitely be probably this year. I'm not even gonna lie.
No, literally this year, like last year and this year have been like the most like I've been changed. And I feel like having you and having like our small group and having like the church community has been like so great for me.
Yeah, me too.
Personally, and I feel like for you as well and for everyone else in our small group.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that.
Me too.
And how did you like ask your mom about like I love the story.
I was in the car. Me and my mom were in the car. I was in the back seat because I was 5. And I was like, Mommy, I want to ask Jesus into my heart. And she was like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, okay, like repeat after me. And we like said the prayer.
Oh.
And so we were going to my grandma's house. And then I got to my grandma's house. My grandma, she was so excited. Her name's Mom Becky. That's what we call her. Oh. Mom Becky was so excited. She was like, oh, this is the best decision you'll ever make. And I'm thinking, really? Like
okay. As a 5-year-old,
yeah, I'm like,
okay, girl.
I want some ice cream. Like that's the best decision, you know? But definitely this year is when like Jesus is like pulled on my heart and like said like, girl, like you really need me. And I'm like, yeah, I need you. And like I think I've been more convicted of my sins this year, you know, like maturing a lot more in my faith. And awesome. I'm really thankful for that. And I just think like doing this podcast was like definitely a way to like grow together, like me and her, and then, like just to grow like spiritually. But also like in my testimony, a very big part of it has definitely been like doubt and like insecurity. And like
I feel like a lot of us struggle with that, so that's great to like bring up.
And I've always struggled with insecurity, like literally since I was saved. And I think that's kind of a big part in like spiritual warfare, because I mean obviously we'd still struggle with insecurity, but it's like a big thing in my life, and I think that's like Satan trying to like dim my light. And Jesus is like, no girl, like I'm calling you out. And I'm like, yes, period. And so I think this year like I've been the most insecure but the most like content I've ever been, because like
I would have to agree.
Because like at the beginning of the school year, it was terrible. I was so insecure and I was like just always focused on myself. But then like God would gently remind me and be like, hey, like it's not about you, like it's about me, you know, focus on me. And then it takes all that pressure away of trying to be perfect and look a certain way or act a certain way.
For sure.
So
I feel like also just like I feel like this year I've done so much more like talking to God and like being like present with God and like just during the day like having like just little silent prayers or just like talking to God. And like some days like that's what gets me through the day. I'm not kidding. Some days are like everyone has like terrible days, and some days I'm like, God, like you're the only thing that's getting me through this day. Like genuinely. So I feel like that's been like a really good thing that I've like learned how to do this year is like really talk to God. So.
And like he's taught me to be like real with him and like authentic, because I'd always be like, yeah, like I'm okay, like I'd put up this facade for him, like this mask. But this year
God always knows.
Yeah,
so,
he knows.
You might as well be honest, because I struggle with that. Like I struggle with being honest.
Same.
Because sometimes I like don't like getting vulnerable, even if it's with God. Real. And, like he knows everything.
Yeah, he literally knows like before you even know it. But I'm like, I don't like my guard being down, because it's scary sometimes. It is scary. But like it's God. Like
I know.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, great.
Period.
So we kind of wanted to jump in on like more of why we like, or like the meaning behind this podcast. So, we kind of wanted to talk about things that like, as Christians, make us like unstained from the world. What do you say?
Yeah.
So one of the first things that this is all from our Pastor Buddy's. Like
he is so good. I love him.
Shout out to Pastor Buddy. He's a real one.
We love you.
He's a real one.
Yeah.
But we were going through, and his first like topic was talking about how your words expose your heart. And I think this is like a really big thing, especially for me, because like gossiping, cussing, like all of those things are like really relevant in like especially our generation. Like I would say especially gossiping and cussing and just like,
well, I feel like it's generally hard for girls.
Yeah, especially
it's
girls.
Just something to like, oh, let's talk about this other girl.
I know, like, and like it's
talk
so
about guys.
Yes, yeah, and it's so hard to like not like speak ill of others.
Yeah,
speak ill of others because because it's hard because everyone else is doing it. But I feel like that's one thing that I've had to work towards, and I'm far from perfect.
Oh, same. But I've definitely like this year, like God's convicted me of gossiping, so I've been like praying and like asking for Him to convict me when I gossip.
Yeah.
And so I've become more aware of like when I gossip. That doesn't mean like I never gossip because I'll still
we're all still sinners.
Yeah, and I'll still disobey the Spirit, and like I'll be like, no, like I just gotta say this one thing, and I'm just like, oh man, sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. And I think like realizing it when you do it is good because it's like reflecting on I shouldn't be doing
and
that.
God does that to bring you back to Him, like He convicts you.
Yes. Yeah. So like definitely like especially for me, like if I'm being honest, cussing has been a big thing for me. Like that I've had to like sometimes I really want to say something.
Me too.
Say something about someone through words that aren't kind and not from God. So I feel like that's like a big thing.
Well, the thing about it for me is that like my whole life I was so like no cussing.
Yeah, same.
Cussing is bad.
Yeah.
And then like this year it's just been like crazy, girl. Yeah. Like I haven't like no, I've been bad. So let me just say. So this other day, okay, something like really like wow happened.
Yes, we want to know the stories.
Right. Yeah. And so it had to do with Snapchat. Okay, let me just throw that out there. And
Don't even get me started on Snapchat.
And so then I like something happened and I was so like shocked and I was like, whoa. And so then I like said some words I shouldn't have said just because I was so surprised.
Yeah.
And like I like it just came out of my mouth. I'm like, what? That does never happens. But like, because usually I can like feel like a tug, you know, like, oh, don't say that, but just say it this one time. But like I just said it, and I was like, oh, and then I felt so convicted the rest of the night. And I was like, oh God, I'm so sorry. Like I shouldn't have said that. And
but then at least you realized.
Yeah,
Some
and like he convicted me, and I asked for forgiveness. But the next day, I was still feeling that guilt even after I repented. And I was like, no, Satan, we ain't doing that today because God cleansed me.
Yes. Period.
Jesus died for me in that word. So, get away from me, Satan. Free.
Period. Okay, but like that's so real because I'll like say something and like instantly feel so guilty about it.
Yeah.
But I think just like your words expose your heart, and like that is something that like that makes you stand out among like other people, and that makes people be like, oh, there's something different about her. Like she never cusses. She never talks badly about anyone. So I feel like that's one way that really you can be unstained, I guess.
Yeah.
Another one was that we said was help the helpless and like displaying grace. I know for me personally, I've had experiences where like either I or someone else towards me has not like holds a grudge, and like that is just the worst feeling possible.
Real.
And you got to think Jesus wouldn't hold a grudge against us.
Period.
For something that we would do. So I feel like I've had to work on this so much because I'm like, oh, they treated me so badly, like I'm not gonna forgive them.
Yeah.
But I feel like being unstained, it comes with, oh, I need to show them grace and forgive them for what they've done because they're a sinner just like I am.
Oh, period.
But
even today, like Buddy was talking about, he was like, well, because Jesus died for you, like you're called to forgive others because he forgave you.
Yes.
And I was like,
not really resenting.
I was like, that's really good. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Because like when people don't forgive me, I'm like, okay, sinner, like Jesus forgave you, why don't you forgive me?
Yeah.
But then when I like don't forgive, I'm like, oh, like I don't want to forgive you. Like you're so annoying. Like I have anger issues sometimes. Okay.
I think we both do, bro.
Yeah. Let me just throw that out there. Okay. But like it's fine because well, I mean it's not fine, but the Lord is sanctifying me.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So. And another thing we said to be unstained is I really think the people you hang around.
Yes, that was a big one.
Because when you hang around with like the people that lead you towards the Lord, like you're going to become more like who you hang around.
You're leading me towards the Lord every day.
And so, I've seen it play out. Like, I remember at the beginning of the school year, back when I was like really insecure and stuff, I didn't really come to church that often because I would make excuses. Oh, I had volleyball practice, or oh, I'm just too tired. I have so much homework. Yeah. Okay, girl, push that aside. I'm still guilty
of that. If I'm being honest, like it's hard.
It is hard.
It is very hard.
Yeah, but I had to learn. Like one Wednesday, I was like, no, I just have to go to church. Like I have to do it because I just need to. Yeah. So I pushed all my anxiety or worries aside, and I went to church. And let me just tell you, woo! When I was back with my like people after not being with them for so long, it was so good. I just felt so much more like
you just feel better.
Yeah, and it was just like radiating the spirit. And I was like, you know?
And when you surround yourself with people who are like-minded and like fellow Christians, like it makes you better and it helps you grow. And like I feel like
iron sharpens iron.
Yes, for sure. And it leads you towards what you're trying to go towards.
Exactly.
So I would say, and like I've struggled a lot of times being like, oh, like I don't hang out with the most popular people, like I'm not in the popular crowd. Like I'm being honest here. Like I am insecure about that a lot. But wouldn't you rather have real friends that are of God and support you and lift you up than friends that are gonna tug you down and are not gonna lead you towards God? So really, who's winning?
Exactly.
And like not winning, but you know, who has it better off?
You know? And there's like a balance too, because obviously not all of your friends are gonna be like godly and Christian because like we live in a fallen world. And like you might
none of us are ever gonna be perfect.
Exactly. And like you might have some friends that are like different religion or like they say they're Christian but like their actions don't match their words. Which is like we can all be praying for them, but also like they need to be witnessed to too.
Yeah.
So you don't just like shut yourself out. You just have to be like mindful.
Yes, you should be and I should be doing this too, but reaching out to those who aren't being led in the right direction or whatever, or aren't the same religion. That's very hard for me. That's hard to tackle, like people that aren't the same religion, because God tells us to tell everyone about him. Like it doesn't matter who you are.
But your pride comes in. It's just like I don't want them to think less of me.
Yeah, and I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to say the wrong things or have them like not like me because, you know, I'm telling them that their religion is wrong.
I'm telling you that you're wrong.
Yeah, it's like imagine someone coming up to us and being like, everything that you've ever believed is wrong.
Yeah,
like, of course you're gonna be like, no.
Yeah, then it's gonna be this whole like quarrel.
Really, all you can do at that point is pray about it.
Yeah,
because,
exactly. And like it's not
God will take over. Yeah, God will lead.
And it's not our job to save; it's our job to plant the seeds.
Yes,
and
God,
I love
that. I love
same.
that. Just planting the seeds.
And it's like there's no pressure when you're planting the seeds.
And I feel like a lot of that comes into play, like even on social media, like posting stuff like Bible verses, posting different things that you really feel strongly about, not posting like inappropriate things online, you know, which again,
easier said than done
because sometimes you'll have a bad word in your TikTok or whatever. But like I'm just being honest, like on social media, being aware of like what you're posting, kind of like do you really want to post a bikini picture on your like main feed? Like
it's like a skimpy, like
like what do you want to be like? How people view you, you know?
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah, I know what you mean.
So I feel like that's kind of where it gets hard though, because I definitely struggle with that.
Me too. And that kind of comes in play with like if you're a believer, and then the Holy Spirit dwells inside of you. So it's now the place where the Spirit lives. So we need to remember that our bodies are temples; they're not ours. So we can't just kind of like dress ourselves however we want. I guess like we need to do it in a way that honors the Lord. Like you don't want like everything hanging out. You know, no. It doesn't mean like like you can't show skin. Like no, it's just like modesty is key, because like it's respectful for God.
Yeah,
and like
and
the Holy
it's classy Spirit. And like you know you don't want to show like you know like a different image that you don't want to be shown as. Also we were saying not filling your heart and mind with things that are not of God. So like bad music, again, guilty of this. Like I have a hard time with having my favorite artists, some of their songs not being like I shouldn't be listening to that, you know, like I shouldn't be putting this into my ears. Movies, shows, like
Those are hard because I love a good rom-com.
I know,
but
same. And like,
shouldn't be watching
even
that
like
sometimes.
Snap and TikTok, like those things get really complicated because Snap, you're sending pictures that you shouldn't be. You're saying things you shouldn't be.
Because it's like goes away.
Yeah, because it goes away. And like, again, associating yourself with people that are gonna not lead you towards Christ. And I feel like, again, like with TikTok as well, like watching stuff that isn't good for your like mind and heart, you know?
Yeah.
That's hard because I struggle with that daily.
Me too.
That's something like I need to be praying about and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, those were some of the things that we kind of wanted to talk about with being like unstained.
Yeah.
This is just our first episode, so it's short and sweet.
Season 1, episode 1.
Yes, and actually, like, I'm being serious. Go on our Instagram, DM us like ideas. Yeah, we would love to take like ideas to talk about.
And like our DMs are always open. Like if you want to like
prayer requests,
or like talk.
Yeah, we want to talk to anybody who needs someone to talk to.
Yeah.
But yeah, we love y'all, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye. Hey, testing. This could be a blooper in our thing.
Hey guys. Okay, we're starting our podcast, which is called The Unstained. Wait, are we starting? No. Okay, I'm like, I'm not ready.
We're testing. First day of filming.
Testing.
We kind of just became friends from church, or what should we say?
Yeah, that's good.